Good afternoon. This is Carole Malone with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and we're just going to give this another moment before we get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, welcome to our second webinar in the Caring for the Caregiver monthly series. My name is Carole Malone, and I am the Assistant Secretary with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. A little bit about Elder Affairs. We are the Commonwealth's state agency devoted to aging and caregiving services. Our mission is to promote the independence, the empowerment, and well-being of older adults and those who care for them. A little bit about the background of today's series. This series was launched last month in partnership with Elder Affairs, Mass Home Care, and the Massachusetts Technology Collaborative. The purpose of the caregiving series is to provide some simple step tips, some practical solutions, information on community resources to support family caregivers throughout Massachusetts. This series also aims to bring together caregivers, all of you, including all of your colleagues and friends here on today's webinar, to learn more about topics of interest. Each month, we'll focus on a different facet of caregiving. Focus on sharing resources and stories will be part of the webinar series. And we will see the value of listening and learning from one another, from caregivers. Family caregiver stories will also be woven into today's webinar. A little bit about our agenda. In just a moment, we will hear from Commissioner Tony Wolf, who is the Commissioner of the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, a sister agency to the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and a partner in providing resources, services, and supports across the aging and disability networks. Next, we are lucky, I should say, to have 3 short spotlight presentations from the Aging and Disability Network. First, we will hear about the nutrition program from Karen Lentner, a registered dietitian nutritionist from LifePath Elder Services. Then we will have a spotlight on the home care program from Barbara Bronner, who is the director of the home care program at WestMass Elder Services. And lastly, and I apologize if I get the pronunciation wrong, we will hear from Jasmin Desmarais, Options Counseling from the Southeast Center for Independent Living. She will provide a spotlight on independent living services for family caregivers. These 3 spotlight presentations will highlight examples of programs and services in Massachusetts that, while directed at the individual consumer, might provide a kind of indirect support or respite for the family caregiver as well. We will then hear from Debbie Meymaris, a family caregiver living in South Dennis, who will share her experience getting connected to the aging services in Massachusetts, which can be very challenging if you are doing it for the first time. And we are hoping that through this webinar series, we can make this navigation easier and more simple for anyone looking for support. I will then provide a brief overview of our Aging Disability Network, what services are available, what some of the various acronyms mean, and try to take away some of those acronyms so it's easier for folks to follow. We will then be joined by 2 representatives from the Aging and Disability Network. So happy and excited that they are both here. Sarah Franey joins us from the Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands, which is an aging service access point. It's one of those acronyms, ASAP, also known as Elder Service Agency. And she is an options counselor and caregiver program manager. Her colleague, Megan McCann, is VP of Programs at the Northeast Independent Living Program, one of the independent living centers for people with disabilities. And lastly, we are pleased to welcome Mary Curlew, a partner of ours from Jewish Family and Children's Services. Mary will lead us in a brief discussion about self-soothing exercise, and hopefully everyone will feel that that was very helpful in today's webinar, because we don't often take care of ourselves when we are in the role of caregiving, so we welcome Mary. And in the spirit of taking time for ourselves, we will continue to highlight a different self-care strategy in the last 10 minutes of each webinar. So before we move into the official program, I wanted to start with just some basic housekeeping and tech logistics. So if you are joining us live today, you can engage in the conversation throughout the event by posting your thoughts on social media and tagging with the hashtag Mass Caregivers. Every webinar is also recorded and posted on our landing page on the Mass Home Care website, along with closed captions and a list of resources mentioned by speakers. So before I hand it over to Commissioner Wolf, I just wanted to add a couple of more things. In the lower toolbar on your screen, there's a Q&A option if you want to write in some questions or comments. And there's also a live transcript feature with the letters CC at the bottom as well. I just want to say thank you for joining and taking this time for yourself. So important. We are eager to create a series that meets your needs, so please feel free to reach out with any questions or comments about Mass Caregiver at mass.gov. And at this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Wolf to turn on her camera and to join us. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you, Carole, and thank you everyone for joining. It's a delight to be here. As you heard, I'm Toni Wolf, the Commissioner of Mass Rehab. And for those that may not know what Mass Rehab is about, it is really about helping people with different abilities to thrive, whether that is thriving in the community, thriving in employment, thriving in really making sure that they satisfy their dreams. I'm a true believer in dream making. I just want to say that out loud. I also want to have, the reason why I'm excited to be here is that I think that MRC can embrace more the family engagement role. And as a family caregiver, we need to hear from you, which is why I was so excited to be invited today. And in fact, I'm going to put out a little commercial. We would love to come back. And we would love to also have, as our guest, we are developing an office here at Mass Rehab called the Office of Individual and Family Engagement, specifically to hear from family caregivers. I want you to hear that your role is critical, and we want to make sure that we accommodate to your needs, which then accommodates to the needs of the consumers we want to serve. So please, I encourage you, whether it's good news or bad news, all right, we can't change if we don't hear from you. So I want to make sure that next time we have the opportunity to hear from you. So now you have a face with the name, Toni Wolf from Mass Rehab Commission. Please know that we are here for you and with you, and we want to continue to partner in the future. So with that, I'm delighted again to join you, and I will be coming back. So thank you so much.
My name is Karen Lentner. I'm a registered dietitian, and I am the nutritionist at LifePath in Greenfield, Massachusetts. I want to thank you for being a caregiver. The care that you provide to your clients or loved ones is critical for their well-being. As many of you know, nutrition is very important for people of all ages, but it is especially important for older adults in order to strengthen their immune system, to help them recover from an illness, to reduce or manage chronic disease, and to help maintain their strength, mobility, and balance so that they can remain independent for as long as possible. Unfortunately, many adults in the community have malnutrition due to lack of food availability, limited resources, lack of desire or ability to prepare food for themselves. Through LifePath and agencies throughout the state of Massachusetts, there are a variety of nutrition programs available to the people that you care for and possibly for you as well. One of our nutrition programs, Meals on Wheels, offers nutritionally balanced hot meals that are delivered to homebound older adults. These meals are delivered by our volunteers or staff, ensuring they have daily contact with someone and also providing a safety or a wellness check. In addition, we have congregate meal sites available throughout the state in many of our communities at Council on Aging or senior center locations where a hot lunch is either served or available as a grab-and-go meal that can be picked up at the site. Volunteer grocery shopping and delivery is available in some communities. Grocery gift cards are available for some individuals if they are needed. Some communities have other programs available for free meals as well as free groceries, or also called brown bags. And the brown bags have free groceries in them and can be picked up at senior centers or other places in the community when they are available. In the summer months, we offer farmers market coupons to eligible older adults that can be used to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables at local farmers markets. Another service available is nutrition counseling. Nutrition counseling is provided by a registered dietitian or nutritionist and includes a nutrition assessment, counseling, and assisting the older adult in creating realistic goals for improving their nutritional status, their weights, or whatever nutrition assistance they may need. Some agencies have sample nutrition supplements available if they are recommended, so that the individuals can try these products before they have to go out and purchase them themselves. Nutrition education is also provided virtually or in the congregate meal sites. A variety of topics are included: hydration, strength and nutrition, tips for creating easy and inexpensive meals for 1 or 2 people, and sometimes food demonstrations or cooking demonstrations. Our nutritionists also provide specialized counseling for those with dementia and their caregivers, either individually or at dementia caregiver support groups. Healthy living programs are available and include a series of free workshops on topics including healthy eating, diabetes self-management, and living well with long-term health conditions. I hope you are able to take advantage of the many nutrition programs that are available to the people that you care for, and in some cases for you as well. Thank you.
Hi, and welcome to the Caregiver series. My name is Brenda Bronner. I'm the Director of Home Care Programs at WestMass Elder Care. I want to thank you for taking the time for yourself to join this Caregiver series. As a caregiver, it is important for you to know what the supports are that are available to help you care for your loved one. As a caregiver, I encourage you to contact WestMass Elder Care or any aging service access point to meet with a case manager, options counselor, or caregiver specialist to learn about programs or services to best meet your needs. By meeting with a trained care manager, options counselor, or caregiver specialist, you can learn about what programs and services best meet your needs at no cost to you. To learn about the available in-home supports, all you have to do is contact the information and referral department and set up an appointment, and the caregiver specialist, care manager, or options counselor will meet with you at your convenience. And again, this is free of charge. WestMass Elder Care can help you navigate which program and services will best meet your needs and that of your loved one. There are many options for consideration: adult day health, companion, home-delivered meals, personal care, respite care, and support groups. We also have several consumer-directed care options where you can be paid for the caregiving that you're providing to your loved one. We can meet you at your convenience, and if you want, you can delay the start of services. We are happy to meet with you when you are ready. Recently, WestMass Elder Care helped a few caregivers with some creative approaches to their caregiving. We arranged for home delivered meals for one client who had been refusing services. The daughter would meet us and replate the home delivered meal, and the client would accept the meal because she thought the daughter had prepared the meal. In another situation, we had a client who was wandering, and WestMass Elder Care purchased a stop sign and a black mat that were placed on the door, in front of the door, to prevent the wandering, and the items were paid for through caregiver grant funding. So we hope you reach out to us. Take care.
Hi, my name is Jasmin Desmarais, and I am an options counselor at Southeast Center for Independent Living. I first would like to thank you for having me be part of this webinar, and thank all of you as caregivers for the work that you do to support and care for your loved one. I hope that some information I provide today will be of service to you in some way. Southeast Center for Independent Living is an independent living center in Massachusetts. There are several across the state, and we all operate under the 5 core service values of peer counseling, skills training, transition and prevention, information and referral, and advocacy. My role as an options counselor here at Skill is to provide, much like a Rolodex or phone book, as much information and options to consumers or caregivers alike, to allow them to see what benefits they may be eligible for, resources that are out there, or services that would meet their needs. I have referrals that I can give to agencies to help with home health aides or PCAs if they're eligible. I have calls for people needing home modifications and can help with funding sources to meet that within their home, as well as caregivers looking for some support groups in the area. Now, we here at Skill have a catchment area of everywhere from Attleboro to Wareham and all the communities in between. But of course, if you call, we'll definitely direct you to a soft transfer to an IL center in your area. Another part of Skill that may be beneficial to caregivers, if consumers are engaged in some of our programming, it's inadvertently a little bit of a respite for you. We have Budget Your Bucks, which is a financial literacy program, as well as driver's learner's permit classes. For social recreational, we have 2 great programs that meet once a month. We have our youth group, and we also have our elite group, which is actually stands for Living and Empowering Active Participation. So I hope that everything that I covered today might spark some interest for you. If so, then I would like to provide the number to Skill. You can certainly call up and put in a referral for services, and someone would reach out to you. The phone number is 508-679-9210. We also have a website, which is secil.org, and there is a link right on there as well to fill out a refer for services. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Debbie Meymaris, and I live in South Dennis, Massachusetts. I've been here almost 20 years, and I moved back primarily to be of help to my aging parents. And currently, I am the on and off caregiver of my 91-year-old mother, who lives 5 miles away from me independently. And over the last 7 years, there have been intermittent longer periods of care time for her, She had a broken arm a couple of years ago with an external fixator, and it was a hospital stay and surgery, and then a rehab after that, and home from rehab. And I've done a lot of meal prep and shopping, and then this past year has been more difficult. She's had 2 major skin graft surgeries, one in August of 2020 and then February of 2021. And then she suffered a heart attack about 3.5 months ago. And I was taking care of her, doing daily bandage changes and cooking all her meals and leaving in between those times. But it was a lot of care that I didn't, and I was happy to do it, and I'm still happy to care for her. I love her dearly, and I am her healthcare advocate. I'm also her healthcare proxy. And it does have its challenges, caretaking for a parent, especially when what comes into play for me. And I have to say that I had to really look at what went on between us in our relationship over the years, because it comes up emotionally for me, growing up in not the greatest household as a child, and then caring for the parent that really wasn't very loving at one time. So I've had to learn a lot about, I've learned a lot about myself through this caregiving, and actually in therapy, and because I needed that help as well. But I reached out to Elder Services after the heart attack, because preceding the heart attack, I had gotten angry with her about taking a bandage off that she was instructed she could do, but she called me to help her. And when I arrived at her home, she had closed herself in the bathroom, and I said, "Why didn't you wait for me?" And then she had a heart attack the next day. So I kind of blamed myself for the stress of the heart attack. She did have to have a stent put in, so she did have a blockage, but I was really upset, as well as my other family members, about that episode. And my mother and I in the past have had arguments, and it does get stressful because her independence was totally taken away due to the surgery she had, and the anesthesia with her short-term memory played into her dependence. And I lost my job a year ago, so it was a blessing that I lost my job, because my mother needed my care, and I have a family member that lives in Colorado that would be available if necessary. She did not fly out during any of that time, would have if really needed to, and a brother that lives in north of Boston that really is too busy to help out. So I'm my mother's on and off primary caregiver. And now she's in a place where she's recovered from the heart attack. She's gotten stronger. She's actually able to drive. And I have, because of my advocating for her and the wonderful care I've given her, she's survived many things she may not have. And it is my belief, through my expertise. I am in the medical field. I'm an X-ray technician. I've been in the medical field for over 40 years. And I've worked in orthopedic offices and things like that. But I reached out to Elder Services to try and be a better caregiver, is basically what I'm trying to say. And I reached out to Elder Services. I've heard of the Elder Services through the VNA services, which my mother has employed many times, and had care from them, and joined that support group and attend every single Tuesday. It's been extremely helpful and supportive. And I couldn't have gotten through some of the things I've gotten through without their support and encouragement. And found out about the very first Savvy Caregiver workshop, which I've signed up for, and it'll be week 4 this week. So I've been very involved with that, and very pleased to have gotten in with these services, and will stay connected, because even though my mother's well now, at some point there'll be some other medical issue. She's got a couple of heart issues. She's had colon cancer, and she's a fall risk, and has a poor appetite. And so I guess what I could wrap up by saying is that, her independence, she's even been released from the hospital. One of the notes saying she's fiercely independent. And I didn't really understand how important independence is to somebody. But it also, because she was dependent on me at times, it put me more of in kind of a controlling role. So I'm trying to step out of being controlling, and more, what I do now is ask questions more than just say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I ask her, would it be okay if, would you like to do this or that? So my approach to caring for her has changed. I've worked really hard at not asking her too many questions about her skin grafts that are still healing, or whether she's eating, what her weight is. And I was told by my therapist that people die the way they live. And if she dies because she makes a mistake with her medications or driving, then I have to accept that. And that's difficult because my mother and I are kind of codependent. We have kind of a codependent relationship, but I'm working really hard to let her have her independence and enjoy the last years of her life. And I think that's basically it for me. I'm pleased that I do know as much as I know about medical issues, and that I have saved her life. Many people have said she would not be here if it wasn't for you and your caregiving and advocating, especially while she's been in the hospital. So I'm happy to have had this opportunity. I'm so grateful for the people at Elder Services, and the people at the Savvy Caregiver Workshop have been wonderful, and all the people participating in both the support group and the workshop. So I'm happy that I could participate with this webinar, and good luck to everybody who's caring for a loved one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, Brenda, Jasmin, and Debbie. Just so inspiring and very, very helpful information. Just really, really grateful for all your thoughts and your experience to today's webinar. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to providing you all with a very high-level overview about our Aging Disability Network, and hopefully provide a little bit about eligibility, but to dispel some common assumptions that these are services that are not for me, and more to help you understand that we operate and function through a no wrong door approach in our system of supports here in Massachusetts. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And also, as I wrap up my thoughts on this brief presentation, I will share with you a place to call or to look on the internet known as Mass Options, which is an easy way to find services and supports without sifting through a whole lot of extraneous information, especially when you are so involved and engaged in your caregiving and lots of things going on in your life. It can be very frustrating. So hopefully we're going to make this easy for you, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So before we turn to a panel discussion, I'm going to start with this presentation and ask Molly just to bring up the slides. Thank you so much, Molly. And again, I'm going to use some acronyms, or I should say I will reference them and try not to use them, just to give you a sense of the supports here in Massachusetts and what it all means and how do we find what we need. So in Massachusetts, we have a very unique partnership across our Aging and Disability Resource Consortia, and it's known as ADRC. And it's really simply a partnership between our aging network and our disability network. And the major entities that spearhead this work and this partnership together are known as our Aging Service Access Points. There's one in every region across the Commonwealth. Our Area Agencies on Aging, also in every region of the Commonwealth. And our Independent Living Centers, also across the Commonwealth. These are our community partners. The way these entities work and we foster and support from the state level is through a no wrong door system. And what does that mean? That really means that no matter who you call, whether you are calling LifePath Elder Services in the western part of the state, or whether or not you're calling the Boston Center for Independent Living in Boston, that it does not matter which door you call or who you speak to. We are all friends, we are all partners, and we can refer you appropriately to the region where you or your loved one could receive services. So this next slide is really just a visual that shows you how we are spread across the Commonwealth from the Cape to the Berkshires, and every region is covered with an ADRC. This map shows that there are 11 distinct ADRC regions that make up those entities that I referenced just a minute ago. Next slide, please. So what makes up an ADRC? I mentioned that the key partners are the first few bullets on this slide, on the left side of the slide: aging service access points, which are elder service agencies; area agencies on aging, which are our federally designated entities across the Commonwealth. Every state has them. Our independent living centers; our councils on aging. Many folks are familiar with their councils on aging, as they are local municipal agencies, part of local government, where you can receive services and supports. There are visiting nurse associations, there's hospitals, private agencies, doctors' offices, veterans, schools, fire, state agencies, and this list is not exhaustive. It is simply trying to share and demonstrate for all of you that our network is broad, it is inclusive of all entities across a myriad of services and supports that one may need at any given time in their life, and that no matter where you call, you will be able to be connected to the right folks that can help you navigate all of these services and supports that are available to you. And how do you find out about these agencies, and how do you find services in Massachusetts? Well, you could call all of these agencies individually. That certainly is an option, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. You may be a caregiver that lives in another state outside of Massachusetts, and you're not sure what region or which agency or entity to call. So in Massachusetts, I'm going to ask for the next slide. We have a call center, also a website known as Mass Options. The phone number to reach a customer service representative at Mass Options is toll free. It's 1-800-243-4636. Live staff, that's the beautiful part. A live person is available every day from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, to take your call. When you call Mass Options, you will be asked a series of questions about the purpose of your call, and what might be going on in your life. And that customer service representative is going to be able to point you in the right direction and make a warm transfer or a referral to a local agency. You might be calling about nutrition support. You might be calling about home care, in-home care support, or transportation. Or it could be where an individual needs help with grocery shopping, or they need help in accessing food or housing, for example, or they may need help in understanding their insurance benefits. The list is exhaustive, and what's most important is when you call Mass Options, you get to speak with a trained professional who has a clear understanding of where services and supports are located across the state, and they're going to refer you to one of those local agencies that I referenced. Usually it's an aging service access point or an independent living center, and when you get to that point, you most likely will speak with an options counselor, someone who's very well trained in understanding the nuances of services and supports across health and human services here in Massachusetts, and can help you with the services that you need. So there are lots of ways to connect with Mass Options. I referenced the phone number at the top of the screen and the top of this slide. So you can call 9 to 5 anytime, or there's an online chat feature if that's what you prefer. You can also use the referral option, where you put in some very basic information and a referral will be produced for you, and you can make the call on your own. And in pretty much all situations, you'll get a call back right away within 1 business day. If for some reason the lines are super, super busy and you can't reach a live person immediately, you will receive a return call. So this is the best kept secret here in Massachusetts, a free resource, a place to call and speak with an actual live person. I think that is the best part for sure. So thank you, Molly, for helping with those slides. And at this point, I'd like to turn to our panel discussion, and I'm going to ask Sarah and Meg to turn on their screens, their videos, and unmute themselves and join me in our panel discussion. Just waiting for Meg. There you are. Good afternoon, ladies. It's so nice to see you. Awesome, wonderful. So at this point, I'm going to ask you both to introduce yourselves, share a little bit about your role, the organization you work at, a little bit of experience with caregiving, both professionally and personally. And I think I'll start with you, Sarah.
Thanks so much, Carole. Thanks for having me today. My name is Sarah Franey, and I am the program manager for the Family Caregiver Program and the Options Counseling Program here at Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. I have a social work background, but I am also the caregiver to my daughter. Her name is Anna. She is now 21, which I can't believe, but she was born with a disability, autism and mental retardation, as well as some other issues. And so she is primarily dependent on me for all of her needs. She can do some things for herself. She does attend a day program, but I am her main connection to services and education and activities of daily living. I am also the part-time caregiver to my husband, who has serious cardiac issues and from time to time goes through something requiring surgery, or at times he demonstrates a little vascular dementia. And so I wind up needing to be his caregiver as well.
Thank you, Sarah. You really have a lot going on, and I'm sure this becomes very, very automatic for you in that you probably don't think of yourself as a caregiver, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means and how sometimes we can lose track of ourselves in our role, and how important it is to pull ourselves back in and take good care of each other as well. So with that, Megan, could you please introduce yourself? Give us a little bit about your background, personally and professionally. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Megan McCann. I am the Vice President of Programs at Northeast Independent Living Program. Thank you for having me today. So we've heard a lot about what some of the services that are available through an independent living center. I agree with Carole. This is a very, like, one of the best kept secrets that, we really want to be able to share to folks that the services are out there. NILP is an independent living center, but we also are a recovery learning community, which I think we'll talk about at a later time today. But being the Vice President of Programs, I really have had the opportunity to work with a broad spectrum of caregivers and consumers. What's unique about working at an independent living center is that 51% of our staff and our board of directors are persons with disabilities. So it really just emphasizes the success of the peer role. In my personal life, I also have experience with persons with disabilities. I have a nephew who is on the autism spectrum, and I commend the parents, for the work that they do. Just as an aunt, it's certainly difficult, but I try to do the best, that we can. I also have a cousin who I'm very close to, who just had her 12-year anniversary of suffering a stroke, and very proud to say that she has, with services in place through an ILP and the PCA program, has been able to live independently to date. So, when there's a will, there's a way, and the ADRC is here to provide as much resource and supports as possible.
Thank you, Megan. And again, you also have a lot going on and a lot of experience with caregiving, both professionally and personally. And I just want to share with all of you, I mentioned how we don't often use the term caregiver for ourselves when we are actually caring for a loved one. Up until just a couple of years ago, I had a span of 10 years caring for my parents. First, my mom, who was diagnosed later in life, but still at a very young age. I think age 73 is young to me. And, she was a vibrant woman, and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and her wish was always to be cared at home. And I'm from a very large family. I have many siblings who are in the healthcare field, clinical backgrounds. My background in aging for almost 40 years in direct care and also policy. And even with all of that, my life became, full-time mom, full-time employee at Elder Affairs, full-time caregiver before work, after work, weekends for years. And thinking all along, I know how to do this. This is a breeze. I got this. I know everything. And you really don't, because you lose yourself. And that's what I mean about what you really don't know, is that there's so much that you're doing and you are on all the time. But oftentimes we forget ourselves and the other resources that may be out there to help pull us back in a little bit, and to recognize that we are caregivers and that it's important to take care of one another. Shortly after my mom passed, my dad, who had lived with cardiac disease his whole life, started to decline in his health. And there were many years, up until a couple of years ago, where the same type of care was provided. And without being able to turn for help or support, or engaging myself in things that I never would have thought about doing before, like participating weekly in support groups for caregivers at a local senior center, or I went to regular meetings at the Alzheimer's Association. All of it just was so helpful and critical for me, just to keep my head on straight, because I was always beating myself up saying, I'm a terrible mother, I'm a terrible employee, I'm a terrible daughter, I'm a terrible wife, I'm bad at everything, because you just feel so overwhelmed. And at the same time, important for us to touch base with these resources we don't always know about. So, with that, I'd like to just get a little more from both of you about the service and support offerings, such as at the Aging Service Access Point and at the Independent Living Center. So Sarah, if I could ask you to just share a little bit about that and touch on it, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Carole. So the Family Caregiver Program is designed to provide education, advocacy, connection to community resources that will enable the caregiver to better care for their loved one, but also care for themselves. I like to tell our consumers who call in that we will try and do everything we can for you to keep you sane while you're caregiving. And the Caregiver Program is a bit unique in that we are, given some funding to be creative with. I think we're a good example of the no wrong door that you mentioned, Carole. So we want to invite people to call us, regardless of what their need is, because we can be creative at times and personalize how we assist a caregiver. This may mean an internal referral to one of our programs, some of which you've heard about, the Meals on Wheels program, the home care program, which might be able to provide a home health aid for respite, etc. The home care program can provide grocery shopping and delivery service. So we can take some of that burden off the caregiver. We might make a referral to our money management program, which helps with financial management, bill paying. So there are some things that we might be able to help with that the caregiver hasn't even thought of in some way that can free them up to be a better caregiver. The Options Counseling Program talks them through other resources. We would then be able to give advice on some long-term planning. But the caregiver program helps in other ways, some less traditional ways. For example, we like to do a lot of homework and find you the right counselor. Perhaps we are able to connect you with some training on dementia care. We have paid to have trees removed from a consumer's driveway so the wheelchair van could better access the house. We have assisted grandparents raising grandchildren, sort of a new community of caregivers, especially with the opioid crisis coming to such a head, connecting people with bereavement services, etc. We offer support groups. You heard about that with Debbie Meymaris. Debbie's attending the Savvy Caregiver program. And so we like to take an individualized approach to help our consumers in whatever they feel their critical need is. And there is no wrong need. There is no wrong door. We just want you to call. And if we can't help you, we will find somebody who can.
Beautiful. That is the right message. I'm so glad you reinforced that, Sarah. And you just gave a really nice overview of how many resources are available, and it's impossible to keep track of it all, but folks out there don't have to worry about keeping track of it all because there are options counselors, there are folks like you and Megan who are going to help with all of that. There's no reason to carry the burden of having to know. You just want to walk away with one phone number, 800-243-4636, and you'll be connected to the right help. So with that, Megan, can you share a little bit about independent living centers? I think it's one of those areas where a lot of folks don't know what's offered through an independent living center. What are the services and supports that are available?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that previously someone spoke about what the core services are. I'll certainly be happy to talk about some of our different programs. So we have our community supports program here at the agency. That really is where you call our information referral and you'll get connected with an options counselor in our community supports department. And really we'll meet in that program, we'll meet a caregiver or consumer where they're at. It's really a consumer controlled, consumer directed program that would be able to listen and identify what the needs are. And as Carole had mentioned, no wrong door. We will work to provide you with resources. And it could be, if we have a mass health enrollment specialist that we have connections to, sometimes that redetermination system is very difficult. Home modifications, vehicle modifications, the nursing home transition program is also a very successful program here at the agency. What that program is if there's someone that's in a long-term care facility, a skilled nursing facility, and they're looking to come home, we would actually have a staff member work with as a team with either through one of the state waivers or even just as one of our core services to help get some services in place to be able to successfully transition that individual home so that they can live, and regain their independency and live back, at home. We also, part of that program is also for individuals who need support because they're on the cusp of, they don't want to go into a nursing facility. It's, but they don't have all the services in place. They don't have the tools. So we will come and work and help with that diversion to be able to provide you with those services. Another program we have here, which is really unique, because we're the only independent living center that is also a recovery learning community, is an ILP. So the Northeast Recovery Learning Community provides welcoming, safe, understanding, and judgment-free space where individuals of diverse backgrounds can gather for healing and growth. So these are individuals that, suffer from, mental health or substance abuse, a behavioral, they have that need. What's so unique about that and what makes this program work are the persons that work in that program are persons with lived experience. So that's really makes it super successful. And the services can be done through, they have peer support groups, workshops, social events, and most recently, our newest program and department we have here is the older adult peer support service that we have. And that's offered to older adults 55 and older. to support their wellness and independence. So there are certified older adult peer specialists that go through training to be able to provide compassionate, non-judgmental, listening, problem-solving support to older adults who may be experiencing social isolation,
Absolutely.
loneliness.
You
So
got it. I agree. I mean, you have touched on so many things that everyone has experienced this past year. The pandemic really created so many challenges, also accelerated isolation, mental health issues, the sense of feeling alone, not knowing where to turn. And what's so tremendous is that our network came together and offered things that were made available not just to individuals who needed support, but to the caregiver who needed respite. There were online virtual programmings, and a lot of those things are still available. And to find out about them, again, calling Mass Options is the place to turn. I just want to reference again that at all of the agencies that we're talking about, there are folks who are very well skilled and trained. Sarah, you touched on this, the options counselor who's going to sit down with you, who's going to talk with you and help identify the services and supports you might need for a loved one, but you might be missing out on yourself. And that options counselor is trained to hear that. And they'll be able to provide, help. I loved that Jasmin, I believe it was, that talked about programs that, financial literacy program, driving classes, all these things that you would not think would be available that can prove to be super helpful for the caregiver. We lose ourselves in caregiving, and it's most important to seek that respite, to seek that relief. And Sarah and Megan and all of our colleagues across the Commonwealth and these agencies do a tremendous job at that. And I know we're getting close to time, but if you guys could just touch on a little bit, I've mentioned Mass Options, but again, just a little bit of touch on how that if I called you, Sarah, and I don't live on the Cape, that you're not just going to send me out the door and say, Carole, you called the wrong number. Walk a little bit or touch a little bit, both of you, if you could just touch on how that happens if I'm calling from a region and I don't live in that region, or my loved one doesn't live in that region. How does that work?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that. A lot of calls from adult children from across the country saying, I can't get to my mom. How do I help? And we are not going to turn you away. I am going to jump in and do digging and find out all of the services in your loved one's area. I recently helped a family out in Colorado. I'm working with a family now whose loved one is in Nevada. We're going to find you the answer one way or another. We just want you to call.
Find you the answer. And Megan, I'm sure you would agree with that. We're going to find you the answer. That's really terrific. And I know we are up against time, and I'm seeing some questions in the chat. The phone number for Mass Options and the website will be posted again, and Molly will be sure. Molly is my helper behind the scenes, who's going to share that information with folks. It was truly a pleasure talking with you ladies. I think we could talk forever. And I just want everyone out there to know that you are not alone. We are here for you, with you, along your side to help you at any time in your life because truly all of us actually experience caregiving at some point in time, even if we don't recognize it and see it, and never think that you might not be eligible for a particular service or support. There is a lot out there, and we know how to weave it together for you, and happy to do so. So have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to Molly. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Carole, Sarah, and Meg for that really wonderful discussion and for sharing your stories. My name is Molly Evans. I'm part of the team at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs that's partnering with Mass Home Care and the Mass Tech Collaborative on this webinar series for family caregivers, which launched last month. So don't hop off just yet. We have a really great activity for you in just a moment, but first wanted to share a few reminders about the series. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday, July 28th at 12 p.m. You can visit our webpage on the Mass Home Care website, which we can post in the chat, There we'll have the latest information on the series, from recordings of past webinars to registration information for future webinars and other resources to check out. And please feel free to send us a note at masscaregiver@mass.gov with any questions, comments, or feedback you might have. And so now, in the spirit of taking time for ourselves, the last 10 minutes of every webinar will highlight a different self-care strategy. And today we are very pleased to welcome Mary Curlew from Jewish Family and Children's Service, JF&CS. Mary, please turn on your camera. Excellent. Hi. So today Mary's going to walk us through a simple and straightforward self-soothing technique using your senses that can help all of us stay calm even in the midst of difficult situations. And so Mary, I turn it to you. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Molly, for inviting me to be present with all of you here today. What a wonderful webinar series to help provide and meet the needs of family caregivers. As both Deb and Carole and the panelists expressed, family caregiving is both an issue of time. It's a time commitment, but it's also an emotional commitment, and can be fraught and can be difficult, obviously, at times. I know from my own family caregiver responsibilities, I would have loved at some times to been able to take a vacation or to leave a situation when it became very stressful, but that's not always an option for us. It's not always an option to be able to walk away, especially when things are becoming much more stressful, much more emotionally difficult. So when thinking about that, when Molly asked me to provide you with a tool or a skill, I wanted to provide you with something that you could do in the moment that didn't involve stepping away and taking a bubble bath. It didn't involve even going for a walk if that's not available to you at that moment, but something that you could use when things are very stressful, when emotions are high, or when you're really struggling. And this is a self-soothing technique from dialectical behavioral therapy. And I can let you know that I'm not just the hair club president, I'm also a client. I use these skills all the time for myself in caring for my children and for my other family members. The self-soothing technique is something you can do very quickly and easily, especially in the midst of difficult times. And I'm going to call up my slides here to give you a little bit of visual about what this looks like. But basically, self-soothing is a really quick and effective way of changing your attention or your focus from the stressor that's going on in the moment to anything else using your 5 senses. And so I'll give you an example. If you're feeling very stressed about an interaction with a family member, maybe your mother, maybe your child, and you're feeling yourself start to go into that fight, flight, freeze, where you may start to get a dry mouth, you might feel your heart start to race, you might start to feel like really overwhelmed, like you're about to cry, or you're going to get really angry. You notice that first. You don't need to get rid of that emotion. You don't need to put that emotion aside. Just notice it. Don't try to get rid of it. And then switch your attention to something else. So you may switch your attention to something that you see, or you may switch your attention to something that you hear. You may even take a sip of water and really notice the feeling, the touch of the water going down in your mouth and going down into your stomach, and the coolness of that. You may notice your breath. You might take a deep breath and notice the coolness of that, and then the heat of the breath coming out. You may notice a smell or the sound of the birds. Or you may just notice the floor underneath your feet and really dig your toes down into that floor, knowing that the floor is holding you and grounding you and keeping you solid, the solid foundation underneath you. So to do this, I'm going to lead you through a quick exercise to give you a little sense of what this feels like and maybe even looks like. I'm going to ask you to call up a minor stressor that you're experiencing right now. Anything that's that you're thinking about. Maybe it's that phone call, trying to get internet service working again, or whatever it is that you're experiencing right now, is just notice that feeling, notice that stressor, and notice where you feel it in your body. You might feel your heart start to race even now as you start to think about it. Your palms might get a little sweaty. Yeah, I can feel it. I'm starting to feel it. And just notice that, and you don't need to get rid of it. Notice that thought, that feeling, that emotion was given to you for a reason. Something is happening right now. There is a stressor in your life, and your emotional reaction is expected and normal for that experience, for what you're going through. And then switch your attention very gently. You don't need to do it quickly, but just switch your attention to something that you see right in your surroundings. If I look over here, I can find my son's flower that he gave me, a Gerber daisy, a cloth Gerber daisy that he, I think, may have stolen from someplace at his preschool when he was very young, and brought it home to me. But so I have that on my desk, and you can see the minute I looked at it, I smiled, because I remembered that moment where he brought that back home to me. And just looking at that helps me. It's a way of just rebooting your brain for a moment, rebooting your brain to think about something other than the stressor, not trying to get rid of the stressor, but just noticing something else. And that will click your brain out of going into that fight, flight, freeze. And then I'm going to ask you to notice something that you hear. Just listen. Maybe you hear the sound of the birds outside your window. Maybe you hear some music in the distance. Maybe you hear a little bit of Van Morrison singing, "Mama said there'd be days like this." And you can hear that in the background. Maybe somebody's driving by in their car and you can hear the music. Or maybe you play this music for yourself because it's something that inspires and helps you. Listening to music, listening to the radio. And just notice that for a second. And notice how you feel when you notice those things around you, those things that give you comfort, those things that inspire you, those people, maybe you even call them to mind, that help you through those moments. It could be, something as simple as putting a cold compress on your forehead and really feeling that feeling of something cool on your forehead to help you click your brain out of that fight, flight, freeze. So I'm going to give you just a couple more suggestions, something that you can take home with you, encouraging you to know that with any skill, it doesn't usually work the very first time. The first time I put a tennis racket in my hand, I failed miserably each time I tried to hit the ball. Didn't do very well with it at all. But when I practiced, I got better. Not terribly good because I don't play tennis now, but as I did practice, I got a little bit better. So continuing to practice these skills, continuing to practice is taking that little mini vacation or that little reboot of your brain from the stressor to something else that's in your life. Either it's a moment of gratitude, it's a thought, anything. And you can see from this slide, there's lots of options. One is humming a soothing tune. It's a little bit of a parasympathetic nervous system massage for your body. When we hum, we literally massage the insides of our body and help us click out of that fight, flight, freeze. So humming a soothing tune, tuning on the radio, singing your favorite song, sucking on a piece of peppermint candy or something else that you enjoy, taking a long hot bath or shower if you can. Sometimes that's not always available to us, but just paying attention to the sounds of nature, listening to the sounds of the birds that I could hear when Carole's was unmuted. I loved hearing the birds in the background while she was talking. Just paying attention to those things around you will trigger your brain into noticing that even though I'm in a period of high stress, the birds are still singing, the ground is still underneath me, my chair is still supporting me, and I can take care of myself even in the midst of this very stressful time. So I encourage you to use these skills, And if it does get more difficult for you, please reach out to all the people who are on the panel, the other providers who gave resources. Molly is also going to put in the chat function a resource we have at Jewish Family and Children's Service called Mental Health Connect, which is a referral and support line. If you or family member is struggling with stress and some mental health concerns, please do reach out to us and continue practicing. And I thank you so much again for inviting me here today, and I hope you found this helpful.